morning. This is Stan in Gainesville, Florida, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas, and today we're discussing a BA or a BFA, the green room, and even more paperwork questions on Light Talk.
And this is David in the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. Yeah, welcome to episode 126. How's your first week at school, guys? Fun?
Perfect.
Much better.
Okay.
We're into like change everywhere. We have 20% more faculty than we did 2 years ago. We have a new director, a new dean, new students, very optimistic, positive energies. Just wish the humidity would go down a bit.
So last week we had our great interview with Steve Terry, true legendary figure of the New York rental scene and touring scene. We hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Thanks again, Steve, for doing it. Anyway, hey guys, guess what I just came back from?
Let me guess. I'm putting the envelope up to my forehead. It sounds like friend. No, it sounds like end. It sounds like low. No, high friend. High end. You were at high end. That's it.
I was in hog training. I was actually at the new ETC offices in Burbank, California. And let me tell you, it's a vast improvement over their old offices in Hollywood. But really nice section right off the 5. Really nice people and a lot of room, a lot of warehouse space. It's really a cool building. And I'm really happy for everyone because they're happy. But yeah, I went in for hog training this week with 3 other professional designers. And Brandon Gauthier was there, and he was the trainer. And we did an intense 2-day hog session.
Are you going to have a new career as a programmer, David?
I figured I should learn this. I mean, and and I did. And I must tell you, it's pretty powerful. You guys all know this. I mean, I'm not saying anything new. I loved it. And I had such a good time there, and everybody was so nice. And I got to see some really cool stuff because they were giving us a sneak preview of some brand new equipment. We looked at the new alpha version of Augmented, which is the new free software that ETC is going to be releasing for all the EOS consoles. Stan and I saw it at USITT. We were very impressed, but it's changed quite a bit, and it's actually gotten pretty powerful. First of all, I just want to say that it's really not meant to be a visualizer. It's really a focusing tool. And that makes sense because if you want a good visualizer, you should be using Light Converse or Capture or Vision or something like that. But this here is great because it's integrated into the software, into the operating system, and you do not need any outside hardware at all. It uses all the internal hardware in an EOS or an Ion. Now, if you have a very old Ion, then yes, you're going to need another computer. However, other than that, it's a pretty cool piece of software. They have these different features. One's called a fixture point of view, which is actually something from WIG, where you can look at the stage from the light's point of view.
Yeah, put your eyeball
right
at
the lens. Yeah. And WIG's had that for years. So this is a lot more dynamic and quicker to use than WIG's. That's one way you can focus. You can point and click with a mouse, focus that way. They've got something called stick beams, which basically shows you where the beam of light, the hot spot's going to hit, so that you don't have to worry about centering it on the person. You can actually hit the person's head, and then you can turn that off and you can see the light. That's great for focusing and seeing through walls, scrims, borders. So if you have a light, sometimes there's like a light, behind the drum set, but you can't see it, but you want to focus it on the drummer's butt or something like that. That's the hot spot because you want to get a nice silhouette of the drummer. You can actually see it and do it and use that, and you see the light through the drummer, which is really handy. But what's really cool also is that you can see lights that are buried behind scenery. You can see lights that are behind borders, and you may be burning your border up. So you're not going to be like causing any problems that way. You can actually see everything from outside of the solid object. They have something called fixture labels. And this is what really turned me on, is that you can actually see the stage on your monitor from any point of view. And you can have labels of where each light is focused by channel numbers or fixture numbers, which for me as a designer, you can use that as an active, dynamic magic sheet. So I don't have to turn to my assistant and say, what's hitting that sofa again? Which light is it? You could see it because the sofa will be there and there'll be a label and it'll say 323. And that's the light that's on there, which is very handy for me. And it changes obviously with every cue.
Does that reference to get that label? Does it go back to a focus position or a preset?
Well, because that's actively where it is. It'll show you a label of where that light is focused on stage.
But how does it know it's pointing at a sofa?
Because the program knows exactly where all the lights are at any given time. It really has nothing to do with presets. It has to do with awareness.
Gotcha. Understood.
They have focus handles where you can actually, let's say, and this has happened to all of us. Let's say you have two people standing and you have one moving light on one person, another from the other, right? One moving light's at the end of the stage left pipe and the other one's coming directly overhead or maybe a little bit from the front. Now, all of a sudden, the director says, hey, guys, move up stage about 3 feet. Well, if you go ahead and you try to use your pan and tilt to do that, you know what's going to happen. One's going to move correctly and the other one's not, right? You're going to have to focus them separately. Well, with this feature, you're able to actually take those two focus points, just slide them up stage 3 feet, and both lights know exactly where to go. It's pretty cool. I mean, they showed us, they demoed it, and it actually does work.
Yeah, I guess the light knows where it is in the space because everything is accurate to the space. The drawing would have to be.
Oh, yeah, of course. Everything would have to be accurate.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if your drawing is accurate and your positions are accurate and everything else, you can actually hang the show using the wand. Because I'll go ahead and start talking about that now. They have an iPhone and Android app that will work on your phone where you can actually select the light by pointing at it and then pointing at a spot on stage and the light will move and hit that point. Or you could use the Find Me feature and the light will hit you. And that's a real quick way of creating focus points, which is great.
It's very slick.
And it will also serve as a marker so you can actually move the phone onto the stage and you know exactly where that light needs to be focused or where that light needs to be hung.
So it's using the phone as a GPS positioning device.
Yeah, it uses the GPS and the accelerometer in the phone. Mm-hmm. It's that accurate. That's how accurate phones are nowadays, which is cool. Yeah. Now, there's a base point that you place down.
A QR code. Yeah, that's what I was getting at, is that you have to have some kind of level of calibration between the physical and the virtual world for it to work.
Yeah, what they use, so they call it the reference point. It's an 8x8 2D drawing that they use. You place it right at wherever you want to place it. Maybe it's at 0, 0, where the center line and the plaster line intersect, and you calibrate it there, and then everything moves to that. And what that allows you also to do, and this is another really cool thing, they have something called the fixture position estimator. So what you do is you focus all the fixtures to 4 reference points in your space. Then, when you move the show, let's say the pipes are off a bit or the front of house is off a bit, and that's going to happen when you move to a new theater. All you have to do is take all your moving lights and return them to those 4 reference points, right? Focus them on those 4 reference points, and it will automatically update all of your presets.
Yep.
You can have 300 presets, like on a sofa, whatever the presets are, and it will automatically figure that out. That alone is amazing. Talk about saving time, especially for transfers. I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I really think it's a game changer. And I think the best part of it is that it's free. So, that being said, Steve has our first question.
And it's from Roxanne in Texas. And she writes, please settle an argument. Why is it called a green room? Well, Roxanne, I'm going to give you 2 possibilities here. And they're both kind of odd, but this might be where it comes from. The first one has to do with makeup. And at one time, before we had modern makeup, and we're talking about makeup in the 20th century, at one time, when you put makeup on, that makeup had to cure. So when you put your base on, it looked green until it cured, and then it cured the color that you wanted it to be. So one idea is that people went to a room and they sat there waiting for the makeup to cure so they could put the next layer of makeup on. Or for it to be stable enough to be performing. So you have the green room, the place you would go while your makeup is green waiting for it to cure. So that's a possibility. The second one, which I like a lot more, is goes back to Shakespeare. And this is an idea that Shakespearean theater actors would prepare for their performances in a room filled with plants and shrubbery. And at that time, it was believed that the moisture in the plants would be beneficial for the actors' voices. So you had a green room to prepare your mind and your voice before you walked on stage and performed. So, there's all kinds of weird ideas out there. It's where people go and they were nervous and sick. It's lots of things. But because you kind of turn green when you get sick.
I guess so,
But I really like those. I like the makeup curing, and I like the idea because it kind of makes sense. We're going to go back and we're going to work on our voice in a room filled with shrubbery and plants.
I never heard the first, Steve. That is the first one about the makeup I'd never heard before. That's fascinating. And the second one, funny that it came up today in one of my classes about exposing yourself to pine forests and nature for the purpose of healing and feeling good. We're so wrapped up in art, man-made environments all the time that I kind of like that second one a lot too. But I never heard the first one before. That's cool. I never heard that one.
All right, now I've done some research here, and it's very funny. I must tell you, I kind of agree with Steve. So that's very interesting. But it actually, we're talking about the London's Blackfriars Theatre included a room. I'm reading this actually behind the scenes, which happened to be painted green, where the actors waited to go on stage, and it therefore was called the Green Room. So some people think came from the Blackfriars. Some English theaters contain several green rooms, each ranked according to the status and salary of the actor, and therefore one could be fined for using a green room above one's station, right? And then in medieval times, there was a central area which was grass covered. It was used by the actors as a resting space, and that was the green area, called the Green. So maybe a combination of all these different stories created the Green Room. Now, my question to you guys is, how many green rooms have been painted green that you've worked in?
Let me say something here. I think you're onto something there with the latter. Because actually the Green Room is referenced in Midsummer Night's Dream. And Peter Quince talks about that green plot shall be our stage, our resting place.
Oh, yes.
So there is that possibility too. I don't know. I've seen a few green rooms painted institutional green for a calming effect. You used to have institutional green, institutional blue. If you were a product of the prison system, as Stan was, then you see those jail cells are all green. There's a reason for that. So maybe it's calming. It's a calming thing.
Okay, here's a light talk answer. Another theory is that the room was originally painted green to relieve the eyes from the glare of the stage. On the other hand, early stage lighting was by candlelight, so the glare might be a modern reference to electric stage lighting. It is sometimes said that the term green room was a response to limelight. Though the name is merely a coincidence, limelight refers to calcium oxide. We all know that, right? So maybe it was about the glare. So I don't know.
You said a little bit about Jerome K. Jerome, the English actor. He talks about in his book, he says there was no green room. There has never been a green room. I never saw a green room, but people talk about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knows for sure, but there are a lot of theories out there. And again, I don't think I've ever been in a green room that has been painted green. Anyway, Kim from San Diego asks, I work with a very creative designer who often makes changes. I have trouble keeping up with the paperwork. I'd appreciate any suggestions. We are working in community and high school theaters, so I'm the ME, programmer, electrician, and everything. Wow. Well, Kim, you should be as old as we are, because when we had to do it, back in the old days, we had to do it all by hand.
We had chisels and stone tablets.
With stone tablets. We had to have someone go up on the top of the mountain and wait for God to hit it with lightning bolts, right? Just like Moses. That's how we
David,
did
you've
paperwork
already told
back
your
then.
story about keeping up with Billington, right? Tracking
Oh,
stuff
well,
for him.
yeah, and that was all but done by hand, Now, First of all, I think, Kim, it's great that you actually care about keeping up with the paperwork, because it's in your best interest, because it's so easy to lose track. It really is. I mean, there are a lot of changes made, and that's what theater's all about, and lighting. And, this highly creative designer that you work for is going to make changes. And, if you were designing, you'd probably make changes too. But you want to keep up with the paperwork. So back then, yes, we all did it by hand. I had a big checklist, and I would have to update the plot, the hookup, the instrument schedule, the color charts, and blah, 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 blah. Repatch sheets, all that. I would check it off as I, updated it. But nowadays we have computers, and we have a program called Lightright. Now, how did this? And I must say that John McKernan, it's a fantastic program. It's his program. But before Lightright, there was this little assistant lighting designer who worked for the Miami Opera, who, when it was doing it by hand, would be up every night till 4 or 5 in the morning at the offices, updating all this. And one night, this little boy, this young man named David Jacques, because I was really tired because I did this every night, and I had to be at the theater at 8 in the morning for the calls from 8 till 11 in the evening. And I had to have all the paperwork updated. And one night I'm sitting there updating it, and I hear these footsteps. And it's kind of scary. I'm there alone. It's like 3 in the morning. And there's a young woman comes in, and she says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I told her. And I said, "Who are you?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm the computer programmer for the box office." She goes, "We could do this with the database program on a company's mainframe." I said, "Really?" And she goes, "Yes." And we did. And we created the very first, at least to my knowledge, lighting paperwork program. And it was called Lights. And I decided to sell it. And I did. I sold it to all these schools. I think I charged $50 for it. And we actually ported it to the IBM PC. And then John made a better mousetrap, a much better mousetrap. So what I would say is I would go ahead and get Lightright and also get Vectorworks, because Vectorworks ports directly to Lightright. And that way it'd be really simple for you to keep all your paperwork up to date, because all you would have to do, if a light moves, just move the light in Vectorworks and change the color, whatever you want to do. And all that information then can port right directly into Lightright. And that's your update. A lot easier than staying up till 4 or 5 in the morning.
Drew Belitsky, our good friend, says, "Hey, friends, what's your preferred method for labeling gels? Grease pen in the middle of the cut? Black silver Sharpie on the corner of the cut?" Wait a minute. He's still using gels. Okay. So, well, I don't know. We do it, I think, in the bottom of it to one side. We don't put it in the middle, because the grease will just heat up if it's an incandescent lamp, will just get hot and boil on the gel and then make a very distorted color blotch in that area. So that's how we do it. I guess if you were really fancy and had a lot of money, you could print out little labels and stick them in the corners. Like when you buy a sheeted gel, there's usually a little label in the corner that tells you what color it is. But we definitely avoid the center of the color.
You see, I don't think you should put anything in the pathway of the light.
Yeah. Well,
so what we do is we take a little pinhole, and where that little section where the gel, you have the corner of the gel where it sort of sticks kind of out of the gel frame. We put a pinhole through that, and then we take a tag, and we and a piece of thread, and we wrap it around in that hole, through that hole, and then the tag. It's like what Minnie Pearl used to wear on her head.
Yeah, you got time on your hands over there.
R03.
Wow.
So all our lights
you got some free time in your light shop, man.
Tags everywhere.
We don't have that kind of free time in our light shop.
No, we don't do that. But that would be funny. Hey, can you get me like 30 cuts of 202?
Do you brass fasten all your gel frames?
I don't know. I never look at the gel frames.
Do you use safety frames?
I don't look at any of that stuff.
Well, we don't use Sharpies. I don't know if do people use Sharpies these days on gel? We don't. We use the grease pencils.
Grease pencils, right? That's what I heard. Okay.
Well, you are listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers, and Light Talk is sponsored by.
Since everybody's making all this money from our show, we thought we'd get into the act. It's about time.
Wait a minute. Are we going to commit fraud here?
Light Talk University. Are you approaching the end of your career? Have you seen your gigs go from designing multi-million-dollar operas to lighting puppet shows at the corner sports bar? Are you worried that you are nearing the end of your life with absolutely no pension or 401k? Hey, sure, it would be great to teach at a university like these three fools on this show, and the guaranteed retirement that comes with the job. But you never got that required MFA degree. Because, really, who has the time for 3 years of grad school? Well, the good folks at Light Talk University will solve that pesky requirement with our new MFA online lighting design program. That's right. You can now earn that diploma in only a matter of weeks through our exclusive accelerated distance learning program. Why be trapped in a smelly classroom for hours listening to that cynical old professor pontificate about the good old days? Our online lectures allow you to choose what to watch and when to watch it. And do you have problems falling asleep in class? No worries. You can sleep through our lectures and miss absolutely nothing. That's because we have no exams. And why waste your time designing bad college plays and musicals? You've designed hundreds of crappy shows in your career. Hell, they should give you an honorary degree just for surviving that. Our professors are not veterans of tired old Broadway shows and stale regional opera. They are experts in survival. Just look at what they're doing now. And compared to most traditional universities, our tuition is quite affordable. Get your MFA for only $1,000, or just send us an extra $500 and we will send you your diploma right now. So enroll in the MFA lighting program at Light Talk University. And who knows, maybe someday you too will have a lucrative podcast. Tuition for Light Talk University must be paid in cash and is non-refundable. So don't call us when the search committee laughs at you.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Hey, the sound of those ducks tells us that once again it's time for our infamous segment, Let's Talk About. And today, we're talking about the difference and preference of a Bachelor's of Arts or a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree. Now, I read this book by David Epstein. It's a new book. It's called Range, While Generalists Triumph in the Specialized World. And he brings forth a bunch of different examples of why people who are trained as generalists actually do a lot better on the whole, generally speaking, get it? Than specialists, the people who are trained as specialists. And BFAs are basically a specialist degree in the sense of specialists that you're just going to be a theater person or you're going to be a musician or whatever. And you actually take fewer liberal arts classes. So there's been this argument for many years, even going way back to the 70s about this. I happen to be a product of a BFA program. And to be quite frank, even though I was able to light plays and create music, do everything I wanted to do in the arts, I think I missed out a bit. And I don't think I was as well prepared for graduate school as were my colleagues who had BAs. And now being a teacher, and being a teacher for many, many years, generally speaking, I feel that's the case. Now, as I was telling someone the other day, I don't think that I've ever turned down a student because they had a BFA degree, but I must tell you that I do look at students very, very favorably when they have BA degrees. So, I don't know. That's how I feel about it. What do you guys think?
I think it depends on the school, and generally I would agree with you. So I think I'm the product of a BFA program as well, but my general education courses included 2 full years of an associate's degree in liberal arts, right? Or liberal studies, whatever you want to call it, general education, and then even some more of that, including a language requirement in my BFA program. And here at the University of Florida, the same case. To get through our BFA program, it's about 5 years, not 4. There is a intensive general education curriculum that underpins the professional specialization. So we are not in a conservatory. I'm curious to hear Steve's answer how that works at SMU, but there's a very, very strong undergraduate general education core of probably close to half their time here across. So I think it depends on the school. In some schools where they neglect the general education and focus too heavily on the specialization courses. I think that does, I would agree with David, that it can hinder your broader view of the world and understanding of our place in it.
There's two things here. And I don't know, because I didn't do the research really in depth here, so I'm putting a disclaimer on this a little bit. I think as a student, as a potential student, you need to think of a Bachelor of Arts degree as an academic degree. If you get a Bachelor of Arts, then there's a good chance you're going to go on and get a master's, and you're going to go on and get a PhD. So it's an academic degree. The Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, for years, it was considered a professional terminal degree. You got the Bachelor of Fine Arts, and then you went out to make your mark in the world. And that changed a little bit when the MFA program came along. And there's even a couple schools now that offer DFA programs, Doctorates of Fine Arts. A BA program, David's right, about 60, 70 hours in a BA program are general ed courses, and then about 30 hours of your specialty.
Yeah,
if you're in a BFA program, it's exactly the opposite. It's exactly the opposite. So you spend the bulk of your time in your specialty and very little time in general education. I think the question you have to ask yourself as a student coming into a program, I think it comes down to two questions. The first one, can you imagine yourself doing anything else but, we'll say, theater? If you can't imagine yourself doing anything else on the planet except theater, then maybe a BFA is for you. But if you're kind of curious about history and science and math and, whatever, photography, art history, dance, business, then maybe a BA is for you. I prefer BA students. I think the BA students come in better prepared, and so I'm always looking for a good, solid foundation of education, and then I'm saying, okay, let's get that MFA. Let's now specialize in something. So I like the BA, and then I like the students to get an MFA.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. There is a time, you're right, Steve, when the BFA was considered a terminal degree. And I think the three of us, because we teach grad students, we look at what is the best pathway. And I have just found that, generally speaking, BA students have a much easier time, have a broader sense of the world when they come into grad school, and they have fewer bad habits. Let's be honest, we've seen a lot of these undergraduate schools at URTA. Now, most of them are very, very good, but there are some that really, I don't think, prepare their students as well. And you end up spending half a year breaking students of bad habits. So I think the BA gives you a much broader and a much more well-rounded education so that you can actually think critically, problem solve, right? You learn how to do all this stuff through your gen eds and through your liberal arts studies than coming in and just lighting shows.
I'll jump back in here. So, and I just want to be clear. So, to your point about the preparation, David, I would be loath to ascribe that to the degree label that the person is coming from. That's really more due to the school, the culture, and the individual mentor that they have. You can have a very well prepared BA student and have that broader sense of the world. You can have a very poorly prepared BFA student. But I want to say, as I said before, at our BFA program, at a large comprehensive, one of the most comprehensive universities in the country, you're going to spend the BA coursework and the BFA coursework basically track almost identically for the first 2.5 years. And then most students in BA programs or BFA programs have the freedom, at least at big institutions, to choose what their electives hours are. So essentially, what the BFA is post the general education, first 6 semesters, 5 to 6 semesters, you're then choosing all these specialty courses where somebody with the BA could basically do the same thing, right? Essentially fill their elective hours with their specialty. So at a big place like ours, the intensity of the BFA versus the BA is really what they put into it. You can be a BA and take just as many courses in the specialty if you want to, but the underpinning general education is essentially the same.
The problem with that, though, Stan, I may have misunderstood you. You said it takes 5 years to graduate.
Correct. That's right, and that's usually due in our case to rotational courses, because sometimes a required course might not be offered every year. That's due to a shortage of faculty in our area, not an institutional issue. So we just prepare the student that they may have an extra semester or so, depending upon the rotation and when they came in or what they were missing. But the point I really want to make is that the underlying foundation of the education at a large comprehensive university, whether it's a BA or a BFA, you don't lose that worldliness. Now, maybe in a small school in Minnesota, that may be the case. You become a BFA and you can avoid a lot of those really important foundational courses, and that's when it's a problem. And that's where I think what David's getting at is the BA can be better prepared if the BFA lets you skirt a lot of those important critical thinking courses.
Well, I don't think you're skirting them. I think you're making a decision. Are you going to go into a program that spends 50, 60, 70 hours in a general education and about 30 hours in your major? Or are you going to major and spend, again, 50, 60, 70 hours in your major and 30 hours in your general education? I don't think you're skirting anything. I think you're making a decision, and you're saying, this is what I want to do.
Well, I don't know if the ratio that you lay out, I'm not seeing that ratio where it's flipped 70-30 either way.
Steve sort of hit the nail on the head on this. If you know what you want to do, you've been a Broadway baby from the beginning, you just want to be a lighting designer, and go to NYU, get a BFA, and as an undergraduate, the lighting design, then go out there and do it. A lot of people have done that. They haven't gone to graduate school, right? And they're great designers. But, I don't think that's for most people. I think most people don't really know what they want. At least in my experience talking to students, a few do, but some are still experimenting in undergraduate school. They want to try a lot of things. And even if they end up being lighting designers, the argument of this book is that they are better lighting designers. In most cases, not in all cases. There are exceptions.
All I can say is I'm very grateful for the undergraduate general education courses I had, even though I went through a BFA. So yes. I had 3 years in this, in everything from the evolution of man to marine science to you name it, and I'm glad I did all that. But I still have a BFA.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
So do I. But I think in my case, and it may be different in yours, in my case, I think I would have been a better graduate student if I got a BA degree instead of a BFA degree. Just in my case. I think everybody's different. I think all the students that we teach are different. Anyway, there's a story he tells about the difference between Tiger Woods and Roger Federer, where Roger Federer was one of those, he was a generalized athlete. He did everything. As a matter of fact, he didn't even play tennis when he was a kid. Where Tiger Woods was given a golf club when he was like 4 years old. And that's all he did. He just golfed, right? And Roger Federer, finally, I think in college or high school, something like that, decided he was going to try playing tennis and became the greatest tennis player in the world. And of course, we all know what happened to Tiger Woods. He became the greatest golfer in the world. So it's just different for everybody, whoever you are.
Our new director told some interesting stories at Convocation this week, and one of the ones he said is he sort of talked about, like, are you coming to train to be at the top of your field where it's sort of a vertical line where you're trying to reach a certain status that's vertical. But what if you just think about it differently and you flip that vertical line horizontally and try to, and there's a spectrum of what people do in your field from left to right, and where do you fit on that spectrum? Rather than where do you fit in a vertical hierarchy. And that really resonated with a lot of people when he said that, because that's sort of how I feel. I think about where do I fit on the width of lighting design as opposed to on the height.
No, that's great. I think that's a terrific story.
I do too.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, Steve has the last question of the day.
Yes, we have a question from Anonymous here. And it says, how is reading a play different from attending the first read with the cast? Well, let me say that when I read a play, the first time I read it like I'm just reading the newspaper. I just read it and walk away from it. And then I come back to a second or third reading and I start taking notes. And then I start looking for the needs of the play. Tennessee Williams is really good about this. If you read Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, he says things like the storm is building outside to match the storm that's building inside. So I'm kind of taking that play and I'm taking a lot of time with it and just writing down questions I want to have for the director, but I'm kind of doing a deep dive into it. I think the fun about attending the first read with the cast is I do a lot of new work, and I have noticed playwrights, and almost all of them sit there with their eyes closed, and they're just listening to the words. I mean, at a first read, no one's trying to act, or certainly nobody should be trying to act. And I've gotten into that habit of just taking my script and setting it aside and just listening to the flow of words and seeing what strikes me when I hear it as opposed to when I read it. I want to hear the language in the air. So both of them are really valuable to me. One is not better than the other, but I love doing both. I love reading the play, and I love going to the first read and meeting everyone and just hearing the work being spoken.
It becomes much more three-dimensional when you hear the actors reading the play. You hear so much more. You hear emotions. You feel it. And you have the community of theater in that room. A lot of my students say, do I really have to go to the first reading? Yes, of course. That's when everything comes alive. That's really the beginning of the company. That first meeting, all the designers should be there. They should be doing design presentations. Everybody meets each other. That is the company. That is the company you're going to be working with for the next 7 or 8 weeks. And why would you want to miss it? Why be a specialist? Why not be part of the world? So yeah, that's a beautiful
I'll tell you why
thing.
you should be a specialist. Okay? If you need heart surgery, you are going to a specialist. If you need your eye lens taken care of, you are going to a specialist. Let's not knock specialties, because when you need something really critical, you want somebody that is the Tiger Woods of heart surgery.
Let me tell you something. Tom and Ray do not agree with you. Tom and Ray say that the biggest mistake you can make is taking your car with a transmission problem to a transmission specialist.
That's different. I'm talking about life and death stuff here.
Hey,
okay?
transmission can be life and death. Could fall out.
Look, I didn't go to a hernia specialist. I went to a general surgeon, but I went to a general surgeon who done hundreds of hernias. Okay, because I'm not taking a risk on the guy who's just checking it out. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I can't argue with that. So anyway, that Hammond organ solo in the background tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to us at Light Talk. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests and listen to us on your favorite podcast network, including Spotify, TuneIn, Google, and livedesignonline.com. And be sure to follow us on our Facebook group page and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk fun.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
But if you choose to litigate us, our crack law firm of Fleck, Flock, Flare and Glare, and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement 401ks and 403bs are completely depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Republic of Texas.
And tune in next week when we talk about IRTA at LDI, how we organize, plan, and prioritize our work, and how do we balance our professional gigs with our teaching.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
And we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.